Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, we've talked many times about the awful problems with the Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Authority, with the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, are all interlinked. The awfulness of the building, the awfulness of the management, the damage, the deaths, the sheer incompetence of virtually everyone involved. Now, we're not at all saying that it is the staff's fault. This is a systemic failure. The staff themselves are trying to work as hard and as well as they can, but given the problems that are being handed to them by management, it's not surprising that there's so many problems. Remember, this is the hospital that they knew was being built badly and wrongly and had infections and didn't do anything about it and continued with it. This is the health board that hired private investigators to investigate the families of victims rather than actually sort out what was wrong with the problems leading to the deaths. This is how bad the organisation is. But it isn't surprising when you have a look at the senior members of the board, particularly the boss, a man who held 9 other top jobs at the same time. How can he possibly do one job well when he's only able to give 1/10 of his attention to it? Let's have a look at this and see why this should stop, and that you should only be given one job at a time and not allowed to moonlight. Here goes. Now, I don't suppose anyone would be surprised that we're talking about this issue again. Greater Glasgow and Clyde is just the worst of the worst of all the health boards in Scotland. But of course, this is ultimately under the SNP, and it's their decisions that led to this being able to happen. And I can't blame this on other people. This is 17 years of SNP misrule. So no wonder you're getting people like this failing spectacularly at everything they do. How can he have 9 other jobs and still claim that he's giving his top effort into this one? He obviously can't. So boss at scandal hit Glasgow Health Board held 9 other top jobs while the body faced major crises. The chairman at the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde held senior posts at 9 other groups while the health board struggled with the infection scandal, as well as all the other scandals, not just the infection one. The chairman of the largest health board in Scotland held 9 other top jobs while the scandals were faced by the biggest crises in its history, and critics have questioned how John Brown, chairman of NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde until last week, was able to focus on the troubled health board while holding so many other senior positions. And this is it. You cannot. When you have 10 jobs, how can you possibly be in control of any of them when all you can do is fail at one? If you are not giving your full attention to any one job, then you cannot be giving your attention to any of the others. Perhaps a maximum of one job at a time should be permitted. If you're not capable of doing that, then maybe you should find work elsewhere. What on earth means you can do this? It's just wrong, isn't it? You're responsible for an entire hospital and you're doing what? Effectively one working day a fortnight. How can you run a hospital if you're only there effectively one day a fortnight? Between 2019 and 2022, the Scottish Government commissioned Brown to work on a report about good governance in the NHS and increased his working hours, it says, to 5 days a week during this time. They also paid him £151,000 extra for the work on top of his salary. And yet, if he's only doing 1/10 of the time because he had 9 other jobs, that's 10 jobs. How can he possibly be putting that time in? It's quite impossible, isn't it? During this period, the Great Glasgow and Clyde was facing major concerns from patients and politicians after dozens of people, including children with cancer, became sick and some died while being treated at the board's flagship QE hospital. We've done the thing with Millie May, and we've talked about that. And it isn't just Millie, there was others. And we've had people in who were involved in the construction. We've done the conversations about that. They knew the infection was there as they were building it. They were putting in the wrong kinds of air conditioning. They knew the water system wasn't right. There was dead animals hanging around. They knew about it and did nothing. It's criminal. It's a crime against humanity to even open this hospital knowing the problems in advance. Wards had been closed and patients moved elsewhere over fears that bugs in the hospital's water and air ventilation systems, I've literally just said that, were making patients sick. And this is a claim that they reject, but they're not rejecting it hard enough. They're just saying, oh, no, 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 no. But they're not actually answering the claims by people involved at the time that this was the time, and they have the receipts and they have the proof that these things were there. We've seen the pictures. We've done the videos. I've had the people on. We've had Zoom calls with people involved. So their denials are pointless and they're just plain lies. Scottish Labour Deputy Leader Jackie Bailey, MSP, said it's plain to see that John Brown was a part-time chair of the Greater Glasgow and Clyde and was not equipped to deal with the demands of the job, given the many other hats that he wore. For his lack of leadership during the QEUH scandal and the criticism from parents affected by the scandal, it was the right decision to remove him from his good governance advisory role. The repeated excuses made for senior management team and leadership of the board by the SNP government is nothing short of shocking. I'd say I think it's criminal. What they've done is criminal and it needs to be investigated and it needs to be prosecuted. And everyone, up to and including Nicola Sturgeon, needs to face repercussions. She knew, and there's no way she didn't as First Minister. She knew what was going on. And if she didn't know, then it just goes to show how lax she was in her job and should never have been doing it. But she wasn't. She was someone who knew everything about everything. She demanded it. So she knew. Therefore, she has to pay the price. In September 19, the Health Board was informed by the QEUH that it would be at the centre of a public inquiry looking into the safety at the site as well as another hospital in Edinburgh. In January 2020, the GGC began a £73 million lawsuit against the hospital construction firm Brookfield Multiplex, claiming the problems at the hospital were impacting its operational effectiveness. Yes, they've answered that because they have come back and said, we told you this was happening, we told you that is happening, and we suggested what you should do, and the hospital didn't do it. The management said, no, this is a problem not with the contractors, but with the hospital. Both the public inquiry and the legal action are still ongoing. He co-chaired the NHS Scotland Corporate Governance Steering Group, the West of Scotland Health Sciences Network, and the Glasgow Health Sciences Partnership. Brown was also a director of his own company, an independent director at Culture and Sport Glasgow, a board member at Dundee University Business School, and a faculty member at the Royal College of Physicians of Edinburgh's Quality Governance Collaborative. Culture and Sport Glasgow said members met 5 times a year, while Dundee University Business School Board met 3 times a year. Both positions were unpaid, but they were still there. There were still things distracting him and taking him away from his day job. According to the Register of Interest from the same period, Brown was also the chairman of the GGC's Endowments Fund of Trustees, chairman of the Glasgow Centre for Population Health Board, and chairman of the NHS Scotland Global Citizenship Programme Board. A very busy man, a man doing far too much and spreading his abilities far too thin, although one wonders at what abilities he'd had. The Royal College of Physicians in Edinburgh wouldn't say whether Brown was paid for his role or how much work was required of faculty members, meaning undoubtedly he was paid and that the work was substantial. Otherwise they would say he wasn't paid and it wasn't much, just to get him off the hook. Therefore, it's not what they say, it's what they don't say, and you take the opposite. And there's a picture of Millie Mayne, who died at the hospital very sadly due to the bad management of the hospital. The Scottish Government said Brown's extra salary and additional 2 days work a week for his roles on the NHS Scotland Global Citizenship Programme and the NHS Scotland Corporate Governance Steering Group. What do any of these groups have to do with patient care? One can only wonder. Last month, the GGC became the first health board in the UK to ever be named as a suspect in a corporate homicide investigation. Basically, it's going to end up with a prosecution for the murder of that young child. A police probe dubbed Operation Quadric is looking into the deaths of 3 children, including 10-year-old Millie May, we've just seen, a 73-year-old woman at the QEUH, after they contracted infections. The health board was formally notified by the Crown Office and the Procurator Fiscal Service it was being treated as a suspect in the investigation, but said that the status does not indicate that the COPFS has formed a final view. No, but they're on the hook for it at the moment. That's going to be very worrying because people involved in that know that it will end up if they've been found guilty, of them possibly going to jail and possibly having to face unlimited fines. It could cost them their homes. And I do hope it does. Asked how Brown was able to focus on his work at GGC while holding down 9 other positions, NHS Glasgow and Clyde said, Professor Brown led the board through many important developments, and so they're not actually answering the question, they're just giving a non-answer to a specific question because they don't know how to answer the question. So they just answer a completely different question. And I'm not even going to go through the bullshit that they're saying because it's pointless. He stepped down last week after 8 years, and his successor is a former Solicitor General for Scotland, Dr. Leslie Thompson KC, who has no other roles to her register of interests. So at least there's someone there who's able to give their full-time view on running it rather than just popping in every now and again and overseeing the complete destruction of an entire health service. Let's hope he's on the hook for corporate homicide also. That'd be nice to see. Perhaps then he can spend some of that, all that extra money that he was earning, doing all 10 of his jobs, and be forced to cop out and given an unlimited fine, which will, I do hope, ultimately destroys him and all the others. They need to send a message. You punish the guilty, but by God, the message has to go out to others so that it never happens again. I'm coming up. Now, we've seen over the last sort of year or so all the various problems with GGC. It's a whole organisation is failing top to bottom. I mean, friend of ours, friend of the channel, Leslie Roberts, been on many times. She's dealt with a lot of the issues of GGC. She knows it intimately from the inside, looking out, as well as from the outside, looking back in after she left. So, how can we put this? Nobody who's a regular viewer of the channel will be surprised. Put it that way. We all know how bad it is. But it isn't surprising when the top bosses are having multiple jobs and none of them are committing to a full-time position within the hospital. And that, of course, is half the problem. If they're not there all the time, they won't know all the problems. They won't be aware on a day-to-day basis of what is going wrong. So why should they even care? And it becomes clear that basically they don't. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do keep watching the channel. We've got more coming up. A few more videos to come yet today. And it's just an awful mix of every kind of different policy area today. It's everything we could do. It's just constant, isn't it? It's like a stream of absolute torrent, in fact, of crap that's coming down the tubes. And it all seems to come right out of Holyrood. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye.